I noticed that I just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like me. I felt really flat, and I sort of lost my edge. And I was like, what is going on?
Was it the anti-androgen component?
It flatlined my DHT.
Oh my God.
It just was unbelievable. And I've never experienced anything quite like it. And one thing that you and I have riffed about before is Alpha-GPC.
Yeah.
Really interesting. I mean, that literature for neuroprotection and for cognitive enhancement is really strong. I'm curious, what do you, how did you get to Alpha-GPC, and how did you stumble on it? And do you use it regularly or as part of a different formulation?
So it's in our main nootropic formula that, I know is it the word smart drugs or nootropics that you don't like using? I forget what.
Yeah, I mean, nootropic, I think is fine. The reason I didn't like this is
smart, and this again implies like an ADHD med is like making you smarter. Is that sort of?
Well, yeah, it also right. Well, two things about this. So the short answer is that it's because when you're doing mental work, there's a time to be really focused and lasered into what you're doing. And that works best for learning information or for strategies you already know and you're just trying to implement them. But when you're trying to brainstorm ideas or you're trying to come up with new ideas, that laser focus is actually a barrier to integrated knowledge, right? Because hyperlinearity of thought is wonderful for hyperlinear tasks, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that was me doing a little bit of public prodding to the community to try and get them to build formulations that were good for focus, other formulations that were superior for creativity, other formulations that were good for other kinds of things. And so it was a little bit of me just kind of prodding and poking back on the smart drug thing. But nootropic, I think, is now an accepted lingo, and I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the Alpha-GPC for me, some of it was related to the studies on force production in the gym. Like I would assume, like the motor unit recruitment portion of it is obviously highly appealing to individuals who are trying to especially leverage ergogenic aids that have nothing to do with, like, people bomb themselves with enough stimulants as is, having an adequate amount. Like I also have, I don't know if you've heard of C67T, what is it, homozygous for MTHFR. It's like the worst methylation impairment you can have via, like a genetic analysis. Anyway, so like having adequate choline, having, as a result, adequate methyl donors, having ways to offset the depletion of methyl donors through adequate creatine supplementation, betaine, et cetera. That kind of stuff was all implemented into my personal supplementation regimen to keep my homocysteine in check and just kind of maintain adequate neurological health and, proper functioning in an array of different ways. But the most highly applicable and reason I included it in our nootropic formula at such a high dose is it's like, I would say, one of the most highly reinforced like neurological aids or cognitive enhancing elements that you'll find in the literature for offsetting neurodegeneration while concurrently helping actual athletic performance, which I think, like, obviously when you look into how like muscle firing even works with like the recruitment of like acetylcholine and stuff, it's kind of obvious that whatever is working the best from that vector is probably one of the supplements you want to lean into the hardest if you're deprived of it. Like, obviously, if you have an adequate supply of choline from your diet, maybe you don't need it, but a lot of people are not getting enough, liver, eggs, like whatever it is that they're getting their choline from. So the Alpha-GPC component, for me, is like one of the most useful nootropic agents you could possibly deploy. And it's one of those things where, like a multivitamin, for example, perhaps not everyone is deficient in, I don't know, random vitamins that they're going to get backfilled from a multivitamin. Like I'm sure a lot are, but with choline specifically, I find it's very infrequent that somebody's diet is sort of representative of what I've seen in the literature to be like a decent, like adequate amount of choline. And especially with the prevalence of methylation impairments in the general population now, like seems quite common. So I don't know, for me, it's just like has multifaceted purposes, and it's just like one of the most effective nootropic agents for, actual like neurological benefits, but also transfers into like physical endeavors too. So that's kind of how I saw it.
Yeah, I certainly take 300 milligrams of Alpha-GPC from time to time, and we'll take some phenylethylamine, or
You're really sensitive to stuff, eh? Like you take low doses of everything. Like 300
Very
milligrams
low
is not very much. Yeah.
Yeah, very low dose. I might be, there's about 5 to 7% of people that are hypersensitive to medication of any kind. I might be in that category. It's hard to know, but I've always required, a bare minimum of something to really detect whether or not it's working for me or not. And I've discovered some other hypersensitivities, like for instance, this is one that I discovered. It was just really unpleasant, which was, a few years ago when everyone was really excited about turmeric. I took some turmeric, and I noticed that I just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like me. I felt really flat, and I sort of lost my edge, and I was like, what is going on?
Was it the anti-androgen component?
It flatlined my DHT.
Oh my God.
It just was unbelievable. And I'd never experienced anything quite like it. And then I came off that. A friend, a physician, said, "Oh, there is this kind of odd evidence, but it's there about curcumin and DHT." And so I came off it, and I was immediately, took a day or two to clear out, but fine. And so some people are very sensitive, and then and I'm reluctant to say that because I know that a lot of people consume it and they'll think, "Oh no, that's what's going on."
I think it's important that people know about the potential, like the seesaw risk too of like some of the health supplements, because they think I take my curcumin, I take my citrus bergamot, I take my astragalus, I take all these things that are herbal ways that are natural of like attenuating potential cancer risk or this or that, or antioxidants, and there's no downside, it's only healthy. But sometimes they may be like creating issues that they didn't even know, or exacerbating them. Like curcumin is very potent, not a very potent anti-androgen, but in some individuals obviously like pretty substantial enough to have a manifestation of like hypogonadal symptoms, perhaps even. Like it's crazy.
It's really wild. It turned me on to the fact that plant compounds are powerful, and be interesting to talk about this a little bit. A different this is anecdotal, but there is some scientific data that I'd love your thoughts on as well. When I was in college, so I'm not a cannabis user. I'm not. This doesn't come from a moral place. Drugs and alcohol have never really done much for me. I don't have an orientation toward them. I enjoy work and training, and I enjoy other things, but I drink very seldom. And when I do drink, I don't drink very much. And I've never really liked cannabis or THC. But I had a couple of roommates when I was in college who were really into training and were very healthy. Didn't look like they had any kind of, at least from the look of them, didn't look like they had any kind of hypogonadal type symptoms, and got pretty severe cases of gynecomastia from marijuana.
Is that chronic use or like acute? Like, because one thing that brings up, and that's interesting, is certain individuals in the UFC, for example, namely the middleweight champion who's undefeated in his weight class, did have a manifestation of pretty bad gynecomastia recently out of seemingly nowhere. And it led to